It's hard to follow three such, accomplished people, and I love it. It's policy, design, finance, and in each case, I think we saw that these are people who are at the top of their profession globally, and at city planning, that stays in our minds a lot. How do we keep New York competitive globally? And I think it's just something that keeps, you do a lot of these events, but when you meet your colleagues from outside the planning field, you really understand how the energy and intelligence of New York is what keeps it at the top. And I hope everything we do at city planning can keep that energy and intelligence here and working. So when we get the... I keep... Well, I'm the, just as preface until it goes on, my name's Alex Washburn. I'm the Chief Urban Designer at the Department of City Planning. And in many ways, I suppose I owe my division to Wall Street in a long ago, far away manner. But I want to talk a little bit about the imagined and actual futures that are coming for us. In an illustrated manner, hopefully, but... Oh, the batteries, okay. Okay. All right, well, let's see. So I don't... We'll keep the images fresh for when they do come here, but let's go back to the beginning of the talk and what Carol said. About a street that began at a cemetery or began and ended at the river or vice versa. I like that image of thinking of the street as a totality because it is a place. And unlike most streets, in cities, it's actually a street that's given its characteristic to an entire neighborhood. And we've heard how that neighborhood has come up and now become a mixed-use neighborhood from origins that were largely financial in the 19th century. And I think we're going to see in the 21st century a very new demand placed on Wall Street. So I've had very often presentations that where the visuals didn't work, but the prospect of them returning has never been there. So usually just sort of launch into something. That's okay. I see a power cord coming, so I'll just keep prevaricating. Mm-hmm. By the way, I love your logo. I mean, it almost the second and third lines are almost not necessary. I mean, the dollar sign in museum just says it all. It's like a. Does city planning have a specific initiative for Wall Street? It has an initiative for the water, and that's what I want to talk about. On the street end of things, we've sort of done our work earlier with, as Liz mentioned before, and are highly supportive of all this conversion. Okay. No. Okay, well, let me, for a moment, a little bit describe what an urban designer does. We measure, we draw, we sketch, we do some research. In our off hours, this is what we call a heliostatic building. Since we're in the realm of the skyscraper, it's a building whose top is shaped to bounce light down into plazas that would otherwise be dark. And it's just a little bit of research we're carrying on our own. No specific project that this would apply to yet, but a promising idea. We work with planners in the agency to try to visualize their ideas as they come up with them. And then finally, we use design and urban design to come and reach consensus amongst different stakeholders as to what should be done in the future of a place. So we kind of are able to give a preview of a future to people and hopefully have their buy-in to carry it out. Now, this all began in 1916, of course, here on Wall Street. And the zoning, which was put in place in reaction to the Equitable Building going straight up, is the reason that the Department of City Planning eventually came to exist and then eventually had an urban design department within it. And in 2010, fast forwarding almost 100 years, we're in the situation where we've changed the zoning maps of Lower Manhattan, specifically to promote. We have a saying where we say we want to prevent the worst but permit the best. And in doing that through the special districts and other zonings, we've opened the door for this fabulous thinking to come and convert a large number of buildings, here that are shown in green, into residential use, and in the goals of fostering a mixed-use, 24-hour neighborhood that has been described so well here today. The current project that we're doing to support this is one that was funded after 9/11, and that's the East River waterfront. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go down there and see the work in progress, but it's very exciting because this vision is now actually being built. And Shop Architects was in charge of this project, and it's for a strip of the East River from the Battery Maritime building all the way up to Pier 35 with a little sliver extending on to the East River Park. You can see from the lower section, it's the area adjacent to the water between essentially the first line of buildings. And as we started planning it, I just wanted to put a small indication of how many various regulatory agencies had a stake in this. And this is a general condition in dealing with the waterfront. It's regulated by so many people, everything from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the city, and many of these people have differing perspectives on what one should do with the waterfront. And working out a plan in the context of this hierarchy is not so easy. And that's a diagram on the right that Shop Architects made about the consensus building process that they were going to follow in doing these plans. And I don't know if they did a different diagram for every agency they went to, but the one they showed us puts city planning right in the middle. But this is a vision of what the waterfront might become, and it's a very exciting vision, including piers that go out into the water and engage with it and are planted and have multi-purpose uses and involve a new enjoyment of the water that we really haven't had before in New York City. The plans, I show you here some pictures of it already under construction. It includes between water and land begins to blur, that there's certain overlap. And then there's a tremendous amount of new planting, even though this isn't really plantable land. This is mostly a form of construction that's out over the water, and yet there are ways to engineer it so that it can support greenery as well. And all this is, of course, right next to a giant highway, the FDR, which looms over it, but became part of the design thinking. And in fact, I don't have the slide of it, but you can see on the left, the facade or the visible portions of the steel are getting painted this color, almost purple. That's meant to actually work with the design of the esplanade. The landscape architect here is Ken Smith, and he's come up with this pattern of paving and working with Shop a new vocabulary of benches and railings, and these are all things that are beautifully made, that we sort of obsess about the details and go over to Shop's offices, who, as you may not know, they're just a few blocks away from here. And it's now almost complete. Pretty soon we're going to be able to have a new waterfront that is at the doorstep of Wall Street. So I guess the question might be, why are we doing this? And the reason isn't just, it's a little bit more complex than simply, well, the waterfront was run down, why don't we fix the waterfront? It actually comes in the context of a very much larger question. New York is growing. We're expecting to add 1 million people by 2030. And we're doing this in the context of climate change. The seas are rising while people are coming. So in response to this, Mayor Bloomberg on Earth Day on 2007 put out something called Plan YC, which was a comprehensive plan touching 135 different areas of how to prepare the city for growth during climate change. And most recently, city planning has started an initiative called the Comprehensive Waterfront Plan, which is to look at every reach of New York and to begin to think of the water not as something separate from us, but as essentially the blue borough, this sixth borough. And how can we start using the water to be integral to the city rather than to think of it as an edge? And the planning for this is going on right now in real time. I think the citywide, one of the input meetings is going on just this week. And we're working fast and furiously on this. But the implications of a comprehensive waterfront plan are rather tremendous. They look at ways of adapting the city to possible hurricane effects, such as this interesting photo montage in the middle that was in the MoMA exhibit, Rising Currents, which showed a series of barrier islands being built in front of Wall Street area, in front of Lower Manhattan, with the essential purpose of breaking the horizontal forces of a storm surge that would accompany a hurricane. It's looking at this fictitious neighborhood of Prospect Shore, which we're showing up on top, which to test the effects of a hurricane strike on New York. And we've designed an entire neighborhood in a computer that's not real, but it's fictitious, but it's made up of real elements. And we imagine what we might make our city and shoreline look in a post-climate change era. And then finally, the waterfront itself, which is being improved in large measure all across the city and very much so on the East River. So the large-scale plan that the East River waterfronts are fitting into are very important for the future of Wall Street, because they essentially ask what's the role of Wall Street in this larger area. And we've talked about its role in the economy, its role in residential and retail and tourism uses, but there's a new gateway opening onto the water, and the water is becoming a very much more important place. And Wall Street has a very privileged position with respect to the water. It's one of the major gateways to what is going to become the new frontier for New York in this coming century. And maybe during the panel we can discuss what some of those implications are. But I just wanted to leave the group with an understanding that the future of Wall Street may have as much to do with the future of New York's water mass, New York's water area, as it does with any trends that we've seen resurge in the last generation. And now I don't know if this is going to be anyone's way to commute, but but if we succeed and we do make our waterways kind of as healthy and as integrated to the life of the city, this is not unreasonable. Anyway, thank you very much.